Yeah, so after this video, all these bikes will be sent out to Trail Joy out in New Mexico for this big bike library where kids can come and loan them out and go ride them for an hour or two and get some kids that may never have gotten a chance to get on a bike, and they get to get on some pretty sick bikes. So.
It's hard to beat the simplicity and fun of a dirt jumper. What happened? It's hard to beat the simplicity and fun of a dirt jumper. Even though we spend most of our time riding full suspension mountain bikes, we will always be advocates of having a DJ in your arsenal. They're cheap compared to the cost of most mountain bikes or even some high-end components. They're a great way to build your base skills, and they're humbling little beasts as you don't have suspension to make up for a lack of talent. And did we mention that they're ridiculously fun?
69 words on how your tank feels.
Yeah, all these seats aren't comfortable, so don't plan to sit down much.
Oh! See all those cool bikes right there? Which one do you think looks the coolest?
I'm gonna go for the white one.
The white one? Yeah, that's what they all think too.
With so many public pump tracks and bike parks popping up in recent years, the number of brands making dirt jumpers is greater than ever. So how do you pick the right one? To find this out, we gathered 6 dirt jumpers, 5 testers, and headed to Bradley Bike Park in San Marcos, California for a day of pumping, jumping, component comparisons to figure out where each of these bikes excels. My heart rate got all high.
As someone with experience, why should every mountain biker own a dirt jumper?
Oh, it's where you build your skills.
The bikes are set up. You've felt them in the parking lot. Which one are you most excited to ride, and which one are you least excited to ride?
Yeah, we're like allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Included in the test, we have Specialized's P3, Haro's Steel Reserve, Kona's Shonky, Transition's PBJ, Pivot's Point, and YT's Dirt Love. All bikes roll on 26-inch wheels, have a 100mm travel fork, are set up single speed, and only have a rear brake. The bikes can be split into 2 groups based on frame material. Specialized in YT with their aluminum frames, while Haro, Pivot, Kona, and Transition opt for chromoly steel. Cost, weight, and durability is what separates the 2 materials. Aluminum frames are typically lighter and cheaper, but are more susceptible to dents or bending. Steel frames are typically heavier and can be more expensive to produce, but are stronger and offer better vibration damping. We've ridden both materials over the years and wouldn't say one is better than the other. It all comes down to personal preference. If you just plan to knock out intervals at your local pump track, you'll benefit from the stiffness and weight savings of an aluminum frame. If you're looking to progress your jumping abilities and plan to ditch your bike from time to time, steel will likely fare better over time. So browsing the tech sheets of all these bikes, here's what you need to know that makes each of them unique. Transition's PBJ and Haro Steel Reserve both have integrated seat post clamps. The Steel Reserve is also gyro compatible and comes with a half-link chain. YT's Dirt Love has a built-in crank stopper at the bottom bracket that can be adjusted to keep your cranks from spinning when doing tricks. It's also offered in a chromoly steel variant for those who believe that the steel is real. Transition, Haro, YT, and Specialized give you a long enough brake line to spin the bars around at least once for all you bar spinners and tail whippers. Specialized's P3 is the only bike with internal cable routing and has routing for the rear brake, rear derailleur, and a dropper post. The P3 is also compatible with 27.5-inch wheels and was the only bike to come with a front brake, which we took off to match the other bikes. Pivot, Kona, and Specialized offer dropouts with derailleur hangers for those wanting gears, while YT, Haro, and Transition are single speed only. For rear hub spacing, Kona and Specialized are using 12x148 through axles. YT and Pivot are using 10x135 spacing with vertical dropouts, while Haro and Transition are using 10x135 horizontal dropouts. YT and Haro come with female hubs that use 8mm bolts, while Pivot and Transition come with male hubs that use 15mm nuts. Kona, Haro, and Transition use a standard threaded Euro bottom bracket with 3-piece cranks, while Pivot, Specialized, and YT use a threaded 73mm BSA bottom bracket with 2-piece cranks. Personally, I'd rather run 2-piece cranks because they're usually lighter and less aggressive on your ankles, but again, this is up to personal preference. Time is limited.
What are those little bikes that are gonna get
Oh.
What's more important today with this test, how the bike looks or how it rides?
I think
Like
how
50-50.
we look's the most important for sure. Then how the
Bingo.
bike looks.
So all of the bikes, except for Transitions PBJ, offers a way to adjust chain tension. This might seem like a minor detail, but having the ability to have the proper chain tension on a dirt jumper is quite nice, as it can keep your bike quiet, and it also allows you to change how hard it is to spin the cranks, which if you're planning to pedal your bike a bunch, or if you're trying to do tricks and you don't want your cranks to move, is something that you might want to tap into. The bike with the easiest tensioner design is probably Haro's Steel Reserve, with its tried and true BMX-inspired horizontal dropouts with built-in tension screws. All you have to do is loosen the bolts on both sides of the hub to change tension. The rest of the bikes use multi-bolt designs that requires more things to be loosened before tensioning the chain. YT and Specialized integrate their design nicely, while Kona and Pivot's designs are a bit more chaotic. Pivots in particular are pretty long and are just waiting to smack your ankles or shins. Moving on to build kits, we tested complete builds from every brand, and only YT and Haro offer more than one build. From least to most expensive, we have Kona Shonky at $1,199, YT's Dirt Love Core 2 at $1,399, Pivot's Point at $1,799, and then Haro's Steel Reserve 3, Specialized's P3, and Transitions PBJ all come in at $2,000. I don't want to give away too much about which build seems like it's the best deal, as I'd rather those insights come to light once we're actually testing the bikes. One thing I will say is it's hard to deny that YT's Dirt Love is not a smoking deal. It's $600 less than Specialized's P3 and Transitions PBJ, and it comes with either the same parts or very comparable parts. What's even crazier is that their Core 1 build comes in at $1,000, and it comes with a Manitou Circus Expert fork, which we find on our Shonky and our Pivot. So it's definitely hard to compete with YT's direct-to-consumer model. Beyond frame material, the most important part of a dirt jumper is the fork. A firm yet supple fork can go a long way in making your DJ fast, responsive, and easy on the hands. It also needs to be capable of managing some harsh impacts. Within our group of test bikes, we have a duel between Manitou Circus Expert, found on the Kona and Pivot, and Marzocchi's Bomber DJ, found on the YT Haro Specialized and Transition. On paper, both are very similar, offering rebound, compression, and air pressure external adjustments. They both use a 20x110 non-boost axle spacing, and they weigh within about 40 grams of each other. The key differences are the Bomber DJ has 36mm stanchions and a 37mm offset, as well as a traditional forward arch, while the Circus Expert uses 32mm stanchions, a 31mm offset, and Manitou's signature reverse arch. The Bomber DJ is also more expensive, retailing for $730, while the Circus Expert retails for $575. All the bikes come with fairly entry-level wheel sets that are nothing to really write home about. It's not to say that they won't withstand some proper riding, but they are going to be second tier to the aftermarket wheel sets that exist out there.
On my dirt jump, it's pretty much max the tires can handle. Just because if it's pump track, you don't want it to roll off. And then if you're going like casing or going long on a dirt jump, you don't want to blow the tire off.
I think it's max plus 10 is the
Max
goal.
plus 10.
Max plus
Yeah.
10 for you too?
Max plus N.
Merrick, I think, does max plus 40 or something like that. But Merrick does also 40 Newton meters more in every bolt on his dirt jumper. So he's like, I'm just going to crank the crap out of my dirt jumper.
Until the rim is about to split, and then take 5 PSI out.
Right?
Preferred dirt jump tire pressure.
90 PSI.
That's max.
Tire choice is mostly a personal preference depending on where you plan to ride. Bradley Bike Park features soil tack dirt that is smooth, grippy, and rock hard. It's perfect for a variety of tread designs since traction is high and rolling resistance is pretty low. Regardless of tread design and knob height, it's important to consider width and casing. Ideally, your tires are wide enough to provide stability cornering, stiff enough to withstand harsh landings, and light enough to roll fast. We've got a mix of tires from Maxxis, Specialized, and Kenda. Most are around 2.2 inches wide, the narrowest being Specialized Kicker Sport at 2.1 inches, and the widest being Haro with the 2.4-inch Kenda booster up front and a 2.25-inch Kenda 360 out back. Similar to forks, we have a shootout between two brake brands, SRAM and Tektro. YT Specialized, Transition, and Pivot use variants of SRAM's level brake. YT and Specialized come with SRAM's nicer level T model, while Transition and Pivot come with the base level model. Kona Shonky comes with Tektro's 2-piston M275 brake, while Haro's Steel Reserve uses a Tektro Gemini 4-piston brake. All brakes do come with organic pads and are paired with a 160mm rotor. We did switch out the bar, stem, and grips on all the bikes. As most people know, contact points are definitely personal preference, especially on bikes like dirt jumpers. Between our test group, we all had quite different preferences. Some of us like tall bars, some like low, some like really narrow scooter bars, some run uncut bars. So to meet somewhere in the middle, we installed the same 38mm rise DEITY black label bars on all the bikes. We cut those down to 750mm. We paired that with DEITY's copperhead stem at a 42mm length. So we cut the bars to 750. Throw grips on, you add a few mils. I don't know exactly how many, but we measured Logan and Merrick's bike, and they're at 28 and a half and like 28 and a quarter. And these are at 30 with grips right now. So I think I'm gonna go down to 29.
10 a.m. Cutting bars.
Don't put that pressure on me.
Last one.
Done and done.
All right, time to go home.
Yep.
We accounted for head tube and fork axle to crown lengths and aimed to give each bike a similar handlebar height. We also used DEITY's lockjaw grips and depth trap pedals, as that's what the majority of our testers use on their personal bikes. With the DEITY parts installed, here's how each bike tipped the scales.
Any song in a dirt jump edit, what would you choose?
I'll have to go with Meat Grinder by Doom.
Dude, he knows on the spot.
For geometry, we see similar numbers and angles shared by most bikes. Our testers range from 5'8" to 6 feet tall, so we opted to test the smaller frame options from Kona, YT, and Transition. Pivot and Haro only offer one frame size, while Specialized changes wheel size with frame size. Their P4 frame is bigger, but comes with 27.5-inch wheels. However, it is compatible with 26-inch wheels. Looking at the geometry charts of all these bikes, here are some key similarities and differences. All bikes have either a 68.5 or 69-degree head tube angle. The pivot point has the longest reach at 425 millimeters, while YT's Dirt Love has the shortest at 410 millimeters. All the other bikes have a 415 millimeter reach. Most of the chainstays are around 385 millimeters. Kona Shonky has the longest chainstays at 400 millimeters, while YT's Dirt Love pairs its short reach with a short 375 millimeter rear end. Of course, chainstay length can vary by a few millimeters as you adjust chain tension. Kona Shonky has the tallest stack at 584 millimeters, while Pivot's Point has the shortest stack at 551 millimeters. The Shonky's tall stack comes from its long steer tube and low bottom bracket height. Its steer is 120 millimeters compared to the other bikes that fall between 110 and 115 millimeters, while its bottom bracket is at least 10 millimeters lower than the rest. The goal of this test is to have each bike ridden by a few riders of varying abilities and with different preferences to get a mixed impression of each bike. And then at the end of the day, we're gonna have each tester pick a favorite bike for pump tracks, a favorite bike for dirt jumping, and ultimately pick a bike they would take home based on ride quality, price, and components.
Most excited would be the YT and the Specialized. The YT feels really short, Specialized feels really long. A little bit concerned about the bikes with the Manitou forks.
I'm super excited to try the YT. That frame looks nice and short and like super playful. And then yeah, I'm probably just not stoked to ride the Manitou forks, honestly. They didn't feel that good in the parking lot.
I'm excited to ride the Transition I'm on and the Haro, because I have not ridden steel dirt jumpers very much. These ones look nice. Honestly, a little concerned by how tiny the YT is, but I think it could be really fun. I have to say something bad about it because we're all kind of like it.
I think I'm jonesing for this YT over here. I think I'm probably most concerned about the Shonky underneath me. I'm gonna have to go this Haro and the YT. They feel nice and short. Haro's got a nice big front tire, so it feels, yeah, proper.
I got you in my sight. I keep all the words you said to me. I get you on your knees. Rewriting the things you said that I should be. I get you, now you beg me please. Hey. Now I stay away, you were never meant to
Drop
say
like precise line in my YT.
now I stay away.
Yeah,
How do you say you're sorry?
Haro Schroeder. It's like nice with
Yeah. Oh,
signature bike.
Yeah.
Hate they even loved you. Hate they fell in love with you. Hate they even loved you. Hate they kinda fell in love with you.
We're gonna do a hot lap on all the bikes now.
Yeah.
Which one do you think's the fastest?
Fastest, I'm gonna have to say YT again, just because it has less flex, but it is a bit smaller, so I'm gonna not get as much oomph out of the pumps because like the longer bikes I think carry a little bit longer. I don't know if I like the P3.
We're gonna start the time right when this front tire drops into that transition, and then stop it right when it comes over this knuckle here. Start. $9.33. 9.63. 9.08. That was the quickest so far.
Oh.
9.15. 9.33.
Exactly.
Do the speed tuck, that's half a second.
Look at that. 9.61. Pretty on par with everything else, so even though it's the sketchiest.
8.6.
8.6? No, it was not.
All right, post pump track report.
Oh, that's really
They're all pretty good, honestly. I know that sounds vague, but I leaned more towards the alloy bikes versus the steel. However, the pivot and the transition, a little bit taller, a little bit longer, still easy in manual, more my vibe.
Say geo-wise, the Haro and the YT felt the best. Everything else was a little too long for me, but see how they do on dirt.
I thought the steel bikes flexed a little bit too much in the corners on the pump track, so I'm leaning towards the aluminum bikes, which would be the YT and P3 Specialized. I was thoroughly surprised with this pivot here. I think the YT really stood out to me as the best, but I didn't set this very high on my initial list, so I was stoked on this thing.
There was 3 bikes that stood out to me today, which were the Pivot, the Haro, and the YT. I think the steel of the Pivot and the Haro definitely feel a little bit more like squiggly in the tight, like bowl pump track corners when you're going quick. But the Haro and the YT feel nice and small and tight, so you can actually get good backsides on these really steep rollers. But the YT just feels like a race bike when it comes for the pump track, so I would go YT.
I don't care.
All dirt jump sessions all the time now? No more,
Yeah,
no
this
more
is all
trail
we're doing
bikes?
from now on. It's way more fun. So much easier than pedal up a hill. Gosh.
100%.
Yes, I would say so. Especially since we all spend a lot more time on bikes that have a lot more things to adjust. You only have a few things in your arsenal to kind of play with. And so then when you start jumping between it, you notice those things stand out more. It was very interesting though. Like not even, there is geo, but then there's like tires. There's the obvious of the forks.
Cranks.
Like cranks. There's like so many little things that
Steel versus aluminum frames.
Yep.
mm-hmm.
Even wheels and everything felt different.
I will counter with one thing though, that I think if you got pretty much all of these bikes and you didn't know what you were in for, they all are good.
Yeah.
Like we are at a time where at least if you just buy a dirt jumper, it's gonna work well in a few different settings. So I think what we're about to talk about is when you kind of know who you are and what you're looking for,
Right.
then we'll dive into like why and when these are good.
But yeah, just going straight from stock, like yeah, you can pretty much take any of these bikes, go out there and have a great time.
Yeah, and then figure
get
out
through
who
the
you
lines,
are.
and then yeah, if you want to change setup and stuff. But
On public dirt jumps, I'll say.
For a dirt jump bike, I was able to get used to pretty much all of them after a few laps. Some of the major differences were the tires. The tires on the pivot were a little harder to get used to, and tires on the transition also. They just didn't carry speed quite as well as some of the other ones. The YT is like really short and nimble, but there's not a huge margin for error. It really feels like a race bike, so you have to be really precise with it. But I would definitely lean towards any of the bikes with the Marzocchi forks as well. Big difference over the Manitou forks. So I'd probably lean towards the YT and the Specialized as well for dirt jumping. Just consistent and predictable.
for dirt jumping, I would personally have to choose the Haro Steel Reserve. It was my first day jumping on a steel bike, and I mean, I really did like the characteristics. Especially if you're not racing Pumptrack and you're just hitting trails or you're hitting jumps, it's a really comfy frame, and then it has a little bit more like give to it. So I felt like I just could fully commit to the lips, and it wasn't gonna like shoot me crazy or super high or super weird. And yeah, I just felt like I could commit to it. The YT was super sick, but I just kind of put it as like a very pro bike. So if you don't ride it super precise or perfect, it definitely lets you know it's pretty stiff. And that's why the Haro is just like a little bit more lenient, and you can kind of just send it.
Cool. I thought I was gonna like the Haro, but the weight felt off to me. You'd kind of pull, and the front end would want to stay up, and the rear would want to stay down. So it'd be close between the YT and the P3 for me. I'd like to try the P3 a little shorter on the rear end. We got maybe 5-10 mils to go forward. But yeah, without changing anything, it'd be the YT for me.
I'm a little split. I do not ride dirt jumps as much as I once did. And so to me, like the transition PBJ, the pivot point, those bikes to me today were very like safe and comfy. And they weren't gonna do anything crazy. And so as I was getting more comfortable riding the jumps, like those were great at the beginning. And then towards the end of the day for me, like this YT is just so solid. It's like shorter, it's snappier. And if I think about like, as I got more comfortable on a bike and was trying to hit more technical jumps and get sideways and all that stuff, I think I can push a bike like this a lot more. I'm the tallest in the test, and like all these bikes are in like the shortest version they come in. So like the pivot and the transition fit me really well actually. Like I would ride that size. I think I would probably lean towards picking the YT as the bike I'd want for jumps, but I would go for their longer version because that would give me that a little bit of kind of blurring the stability I liked of those bikes, but that solid, snappy, like just fun to rip jumps on. Yeah.
If you're spending your own money, which bike are you buying?
I'm buying the YT.
Logan?
Easy YT.
Dante?
I would still get the Haro for those extra $600. Get the steel.
Definitely YT with the build spec that it comes with. You can't beat it. You're not gonna beat that Haro. Or sorry. Let me do that. Let me fucking. Alright.
Sponsored.
Alright. I'm way too PR trained. You're not gonna beat that YT. No. The YT was really short. I personally would want it to be just a little bit longer, but the next size up is way bigger. So maybe just a longer stem by I think it's a 42 millimeter stem, so bump it up to a 50 mil stem.
I would do a slightly more aggressive front tire for my preferences and leave the fast one in the rear. And I would probably put on a different brake because I like having a good brake on my DJ, and it's a cheap upgrade. And different cockpit, but personal, higher bars.
Yeah, it'd be front tire and then just cockpit setup. I'd actually narrow or 35 mil stem, narrower bars.
I think for the P3, since the rear axle is kind of like in the middle, I would shorten it up a bit because I think the biggest fault of the P3 is that the rear end felt too long, but the Geo feels great. So it's like if you could just shorten up that rear end, it would actually feel like a sick bike. The cranks that come stock on that are pretty good too. Yeah. Because that was a big thing, that it has 2-piece cranks.
And one thing too, both of these being mountain bike cranks, bigger front chainring, I think is how we're achieving that, because they don't have small rear cogs. These are like the tallest pedaling bike, like tallest gearing. So, and that's personally, I like that. I know like Josh, you're more a fan of the bikes that are easier to pedal. Same with you, Merrick. What's your guys' thoughts on the internal brake routing? Is that a good or a bad thing?
You know, it's personal preference. If you're super into some clean cable management, you know, it's not really hurting much. I think most people will find a brake they like and just leave it as is and never touch it again.
Yeah.
So once you set it up once, it's set and forget type of thing.
I will say with the internal, a lot of them come out at kind of a weird point. So you kind of almost need like one more zip tie or something to hold it in there. These at least come out on the side. Some companies come out on the bottom, and it just throws it all out of whack. So
Kona.
You should think about that.
Kona felt like you were riding a scooter. Like the bottom bracket was so low, and the bars ended up being pretty high.
The transition, the pivot, to me felt the most safe, and I could kind of do no wrong. The Shonky was the max of that. Like, I could kind of just ride through the jump line and not have to stress maybe what would happen off the lip, where like the Haro and the YT, if I got like a weird snap, I was going to be like a little off axis in the air.
Maybe just the easiest to ride overall?
I'd say, yeah, it was like maybe the most user-friendly. Kind of big knock on it is like if you drop a lot of these bikes like on the ground, they're real solid, and this thing's got quite a bit more rattle.
I was saying earlier, it'd be interesting to frame swap this bike, you know, put it on parts that are ideal, and really see how this frame performs, because I really don't think it's bad. You obviously see people ripping them.
True.
Yeah, I just think the parts surrounding the frame were just really not helping anything.
The 3-piece cranks are tough. We just measure in the parking lot, and like your just feet are so much further offset. Only other thing for me is like the dropouts on that bike are a little chaotic. I already said that at the start of this video, but now riding it, like I wonder how much that causes flex over time. Or
It does have the derailleur hanger if you do want to run gears, so it does come with
which
that
you should
factor.
never do. PBJ.
Why's the answer?
It's comfortable to ride.
Yeah,
I think Jason mentioned it earlier, the 3-piece cranks, you were standing so much wider than any of the 2-piece cranks. I think it ranged anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches wider on the 3-piece cranks compared to the 2-piece cranks. Something to be mindful of when picking a hardtail.
That's a tough one for me. I really like that bike for a lot of like kind of the reasons I was mentioning earlier, but the lower gearing and kind of more crude 3-piece cranks, like I have those on my BMX bike, and the spindle always catches my ankle bones. I mean, the node chain tensioners to me is a little bit of a buzzkill.
The components are kind of on the basic side, but the Geo of the frame is very like you said, it's easy to ride. It's actually pretty cruisy, and it holds speed pretty well. Not today so much because of the tires, I think, because these are a little bit more like mountain bike tires. But it was just one of those that's like, if you're trying to do like big whips or maybe try to throw tricks, it might not be the bike for you, because it's like it starts to get tough to like be super active on it.
Yeah.
But if you're getting into hardtails and you're trying to hit all the lines, I think it's perfect, because it'll get you through, and it feels super safe while you ride it.
That was a surprise. I thought I'd picture them as a BMX brand, so like maybe just less familiar. Yeah, it was neat. Like, you guys definitely enjoyed it dirt jumping, maybe more than I did, but I feel like I could see myself being where you guys were, where you can influence the bike a bunch, you can throw it around. It would be nice to make it lighter. Whether that's, I think wheels would be the easiest way.
Yeah.
Probably, you're maybe like one of your only ways, and tires.
I think the reason that I didn't like it as much was the exact reason that some others really liked it. For me, it was almost too twitchy. And I think that's one of the reasons like Dante really liked it, is because he could really get jibby with it.
It had a little bit more forgiveness, like if I came into a lip super hard and sat into it. Like it wasn't gonna shoot out super weird. It was gonna kind of always stay like where I wanted it to, and then I could turn it if I wanted to once I was in the air, because it just feels kind of like a BMX bike. It definitely has that like BMX style. But yeah, it was super sick. But the tires are kind of fat for sure. they're big.
Well, plus size up front.
Yeah.
High volume.
Yeah.
That was the one bike that just felt really, really long. Rear end, reach, everything was long, but
It does have the longest reach. Checks out.
so maybe for certain situations where I need a lot of safety, it might be cool, but these jumps were short and steep, poppy, and I had struggled a lot on it.
The pivot felt pretty similar to the transition for me.
I would double that.
The biggest differences were that the transition does have the much nicer fork, but the pivot has the two-piece cranks, which are just way more comfortable. Your feet are set way narrower as well.
Those tires are a
just-
throwback.
Yeah, kind of old school tires. They didn't really carry that great of speed on those jumps.
Yeah, that would be a bike with like a fork change and tires alone. I think would change it quite a bit.
Yeah,
It'd be a really fun bike like that.
Yeah, but it would still be, to me, it's like that when you kind of want to go ride everything type of a hardtail.
I mean, I hate to say it, but the Manitou is just not performing for us today.
No,
we're not
ever.
huge fans of it.
I mean,
it's rideable for sure, and we were all hitting the big lines and stuff and having a great time, but you definitely, when you get onto the Marzocchi, you just felt a lot more stable support under you, like the whole time, so yeah.
I think if we were to like sum it all up, it's like you probably want to buy one of these with the Bomber DJ fork.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it might ride off the two that don't have it. And then you're really looking at like...
And two-piece cranks would be nice.
Two-piece cranks definitely are high on the list. Then you're looking at material and where you plan to ride this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so after this video, all these bikes will be sent out to Trail Joy out in New Mexico for this big bike library where kids can come and loan them out and go ride them for an hour or two and you know, just get some kids that may never have gotten a chance to get on a bike, and they get on some pretty sick bikes, so.
All right, leave it in the comments. For the rest of Vital's existence, should we just do dirt jump and downhill bike tests only?
Yes.
It sure feels like
That's
it.
core right there.
Yeah. I mean, pedaling bikes is really fun, and trail bikes and enduro bikes are really cool, but gosh, nothing really ever matches riding dirt jumps with your friends and riding a lift and ripping downhill bikes.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't say it.